This video will cover note page 4-13. So now we are going to look at similar figures. So these are shapes that sort of match. So the definition are similar figures have the same shape, so they look alike, but different size. Same shape, but different size. If you look at our examples down here, you can see that the top triangle looks the same as the bottom triangle, but the bottom triangle is a little bit bigger. So they have the same shape, but a different size. Two things have to happen in order for shapes to be similar. The first is that corresponding angles are congruent. Corresponding means the one in the same place, and congruent means the same or equal. So the way that is shown, if you look over here, angle A and angle D match. And the way we know that is because they have been labeled with one. These are congruent marks, so they just kind of put a little bit of an arc in there. So that A and D both have 1, so those are corresponding angles, and those arcs show that they're congruent. And then you can see the same thing is true for angle B and angle E. 1, 2, 1, 2. And then C and F both have 3. So that's what it means by corresponding angles. The ones that are in the same location have the same measure, or that they're equal. Now, the hard part is they're not always going to look like this where they match. Sometimes one of the triangles will be flipped over or turned around or things like that. So you have to look at those marks. The other thing is that corresponding sides have to be proportional. What that means is they have the same ratio. So they can't be equal. They can't be the same length, because then it would be the exact same shape. Just their ratios have to be the same. And we'll look at what that means here in just a minute. When you find that ratio of corresponding sides, we call that the scale factor. So some of your questions are going to ask for the scale factor. So you need to find what that ratio is. So when we look at these two triangles, the first thing it's asking us is, are they similar? And to check, what you're going to look is you're going to match up the sides and get their ratios. So 4 and 8. So we would do 4 over 8, which is equal to 1/2. Then we need to check the other ones, 5 and 10. 5 over 10 does simplify to 1/2. So far so good. So then you want to ask yourself, does 7 over 14 also equal 1/2? Yes, it does. So yes, the triangles are similar. So the way you know they're similar, we already knew the angles because they've been written that way. And then to check the sides, you just simplify each fraction, each ratio, and make sure they're all the same. Now, how did I know which ones match up? Well, the easiest thing to do, and again, these are already in the same order, so that makes it easier. But when I first look at 4, I notice it's between the 1 and the 2 marks. So when I go down to this triangle, 1 and 2, the 8 is between it. So when things are moved around and things like that, you need to look at the congruence marks and figure out which side looks alike. Next, we want to do the relationship of the corresponding angles. So we kind of already talked about it, that A and D match because they both have 1. So the way we write this is angle A is congruent to, it's an equal sign with a little squiggle over it, angle D. So you need to put the angle in front of the letter. And then we would have angle B is congruent to angle E. And then we also have angle C congruent to angle F. So those are the relationships. The relationships for the corresponding sides is what we wrote up here when we did the ratios. So here's how we write it. It's a little bit tricky. I'm going to start with this one, from A to B over what matches with AB was DE, and we have to make sure it goes in that order. And we know this because over here we wrote that angle A corresponds to D. So A and D, anytime you have an A, you have to write a D to match it. Anytime you have a B, it has to match with E. So all kinds of little things to check to make sure you're doing it in the correct order. That's equal to, so we did those two. So now, next we did B to C, so we write it like that, over E to F. B matches with E and C matches with F. So we write it as BC over EF. And then our last one, I'm actually going to go back and write it in alphabetical order. So A to C, from A over to C, we need to be careful here, D to F. So we write that ratio. So the angles, you write congruent signs between them with the angle marks. For the sides, you write all the ratios out. So now we want the scale factor from triangle ABC to triangle DEF. So I'm going to match up 4 and 8. 4 over 8 simplifies to 1/2. We actually already did that in question 1, but I wanted you to see where that came from. 2 ways to look at number 5. This wants DEF to ABC, so all we did was flip the 2 around. So you could go right from this to flip it as 2 over 1. Now, if you do 8 over 4, or you could do 10 over 5 or 14 over 7, doesn't matter. If you type that in, or you just know that's 2, you have to remember that these are ratios, so there needs to be 2 numbers, so 2 over 1. So we learned that this weird symbol means congruent. Similar is just the squiggly line on the top. So we would write triangle ABC is similar to triangle. Now we have to make sure we do it in the correct order. A matches with D, then E, then F. So that's just matching up the things that look alike. We're going to stop there, and then the next video we'll go through how you actually find the missing side length.